With that finished, it's now time to add some widgets and some screens. And here I'll add a screens folder to hold my screen widgets and a separate widgets folder, which will then later hold any widgets that are not standalone screens. But I'll start by adding a screen here. To be precise, I'll add a couple of screen files already, and then we'll step by step add the widget classes to those files. For example, we'll need a places list.dart file for this, well, list screen that shows all the places. A places detail.dart file for showing the details of a place. And then also an add place.dart file, which will display the screen we use for adding a new screen. Now here I'll start with the places list.dart file. In there we create a new class, and I'll name that class places list screen. Here again working with screen being added to the end of that name, which is of course optional, but which is something I am doing here to make it really clear that this widget will be loaded as a screen, which the widgets in the widgets folder later won't be. And then here I want to extend stateful or stateless widget, and for the moment it will be stateless widget. Of course, we also must add that import to material.dart. Now, as always, we should add a constructor, places list screen, where we in the end accept and forward our key. And right now, no other parameters would be needed here. And we of course add the build method where we want to return our screen widget tree. I'll start by adding a scaffold because of course I want to have that base screen set up. I, for example, also do want to add an app bar here by using the built-in app bar widget. And I'll use that app bar to set a title that will be a text widget, which here could simply be your places, because this screen is all about displaying the places that were chosen by a user. Now, besides the title, the app bar should also display an icon button that can be pressed to navigate to the Add Place screen. For that, we can add actions here, this list of actions, and in those actions we can add an icon button, as we did it many times before in the course, of course. Now, this icon button needs an icon. That's one of the parameters you must set. And here I'll create an icon with the built-in icon widget, and the icon I want to use is the good old add icon. Now, besides icon, we of course also must set the onPressed parameter to a function that will be executed when this button is pressed. Right now I don't have the logic for that yet, but that will change later. So that's the app bar, and with the app bar added, it's of course now also time to add the body to this scaffold, so the main page content. Now, for displaying that list, I'll add a new widget in the widgets folder, and we could name this file placeslist.dart as well. That would be fine, since it's in a different folder. But since I don't want to have a clash in file names here and cause any confusion, I'll keep placeslist here, but I'll rename my screen here to just places. I just wanted to highlight that you could have the same file names, that would be no problem, but to not confuse you when I say that I'm going to places list and you then wonder which of the two files I mean, I will choose different names here. So with that done, I'll also rename my widget here in the places start file from places list screen to just places screen. And in this places list.dart file, I'll add my places list widget, not places list screen, but just places list, because this won't act as a screen. And here I'll extend the stateless widget and add the appropriate import. And then in here, the idea is to have a list of places using my place model and adding the appropriate import for that as well, of course. And this can be named places. And that list should be set with help of the constructor so that the places are passed into this widget, where I now don't just accept and forward the key, but where I also require and set the places. Well, and with that, of course, we also must add this build method as always. And then in the build method, I'll return my list of places. Or to be precise, I want to return either my list of places, or if I got an empty list, I want to return some text that tells the user that there are no places yet. So in the build method here, we can simply check if places is empty. So if we have no places, in which case I want to return, let's say, the center widget with const in front of it, with a child of this text here using the text widget, where I simply say no places added yet. Quite straightforward and simple. Alternatively, if I make it past this if check here, I know that I do have some places, and in that case I want to return a list view. And I'm using list view here to get this scrollable list, but also because I want to use this builder constructor function here. Because this could potentially be a very long list of places. And of course, there we want to have great performance and make sure that only those list items are rendered that currently should be displayed. Therefore, we need list view builder here. And then we add our builder function where we get the context and the index and then return the list item that should be displayed. And of course, we'll also need to set the item count, and I'll set the item count here to places.length to give Flutter an idea of how many places will need to be rendered in the end. Well, and then for every place here, I in the end want to render a list tile widget, which is one of those widgets you learned about earlier in the course, which is simply a widget that's optimized for being displayed in a list. And in this list tile here, I will simply set the title parameter to my place title, to be precise, to a text widget that outputs my place title. So here, to get that title, we can use places, access a single place by index, and then since places is a list of place objects, we can access .title to output the place title here, like this. Now I'll just also add some styling to this text here by reaching out to my theme with theme of context. And then there I want to use the text theme, and then there specifically the title medium theme object or data object, which will be set, which I'm telling Dart by this exclamation mark, which is an annotation I must make here to then be able to call copy with on that text style so that I can override some selected properties of that text style in this place here only. So for this text widget here only. And the thing I want to override here is the color of the text, which here should be set to theme of, again reaching out to the theme, color scheme, and then there the on background color. And of course, if you set up that styling differently here, that is also absolutely fine. But with that, I have that list view builder, which outputs a bunch of titles. That's all it does at the moment. And we can now use this places list widget on which we worked in the places Dart file, where it should be output as a body. So here I want to output places list like this. And at the moment, I'll set places to an empty list. This will change soon, but right now it's empty. I'll ignore the blue squiggly lines because, as mentioned, this will change soon anyways. And now I can also use this places screen here in the places Dart file. I can use that in the main Dart file to load it as my home widget. So here I'll display places screen. And that can be set to const. With all of that, I can run this app here on the emulator. And you should now see this fallback text here. Now, of course, this fallback text is a little bit hard to read. So to make it a bit more readable, back here in the places list Dart file, we should also apply some styling to that fallback text. And I'll pick the same styling as I used here for my text widget inside of the list tile and apply this here. Now this just can't be const anymore because this is now dynamic, and I will actually use body large here instead of title medium so that I got this text. But with that, that's looking all right. Of course, you could add more to this fallback screen, an image or anything like this. And of course, always feel free to do such things as an exercise. But I'm happy with that, and therefore I now want to focus on this plus button and make sure that it loads a add new place screen, which then also allows me to add new places. And then of course we'll also add Riverpod to manage those places and so on.